Who are you saying hi to?
Do you say hi, Jenny?
Hi, Jenny. I never say hi. I never speak to Jenny.
Never once have I spoken to Jenny.
I hate Jenny. God, she always nags me. She's like my mum. Hello, welcome to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for people who like to chat books. Today it is me, Sarah, and I'm coming to you from the Netherlands, and I am joined by Belle, who is coming to you from Naarm, also known as Melbourne. We are going to discuss the second half of the Stella Shortlist today. So we had part one, which is in the show notes, where we talked about 3 of the Stella Prize shortlisted books, and today we're going to talk about the second half. The Stella Prize is a prize for women and non-binary writers in Australia, and it is a prize that looks at non-fiction, fiction, poetry, short stories, all kinds of things.
Hi, Sarah. Very nice to be back on the pod. I thought today, as we're coming to you as two Australians, discussing an Australian prize, that we should do an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I come to you from today. For me, in Melbourne, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. These lands are unceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. The responsibility to remember and address this nation's past is ongoing and is a necessary requirement for both individual and collective healing here in Australia.
Thanks, Belle. Thanks for doing that. All right. How have you been?
Good. Very good. Very much less tired than I was this time yesterday after I've just finished a run of 7 days of work, and I've got a beautiful cruisy 7 days off now. So
love it.
Lots of sitting in cafes and reading books for me.
I love how you live your life in this way. Like you work extremely hard, which I admire. But when you're not working, you live this life in this like incredibly romantic way. It's so funny. It always makes me laugh whenever I go to visit you guys. You're like buying bread from bakeries and going to cafes and reading.
Like to live my dream unemployed life in the 7 days off, or because I'm working shift work at the moment, so I do get a nice chunk of time. So just pretend that I've got no responsibilities in the world, and I sit at this cafe that's at the end of our street every single morning. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, you have it. They're sort of like girl from the film energy. That's your natural state. You just are like that. It's pretty funny. I admire it. That's a compliment. I don't know if that's coming out as a compliment.
No,
that
thank
is a compliment.
you. I appreciate it.
Okay, good.
That's what I'm going for anyway.
Okay, good. Well, it works. You've impressed me. You've caught my eye from the side of the room, the corner of the room. All right, so let's talk about the 3. This is going to be a bit of a roller coaster, I think, this discussion. What should we talk about first? Let's talk about Abandon Every Hope first. Well, first I'll say what the shortlisted books are that we're going to talk about. So the whole shortlisted books, please hold the line caller while I find the list. The shortlist is The Swift Dark Tide by Katia Ariel, Body Friend by Catherine Brabon, Feast by Emily O'Grady, Hospital by Sanya Rushdie, which is translated by Arunava Sina, Abandon Every Hope by Hayley Singer, and Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright. And last time we talked about The Swift Dark Tide, Body Friend, and Hospital. So this time we're going to talk about Feast, Abandon Every Hope, and Praiseworthy, which was the winner, ultimately. Whew. All right, so let's start with Abandon Every Hope, Essays for the Dead by Hayley Singer. Did you write a little spiel about this?
I didn't.
Okay, cool. So this is a collection of essays. So this is one of the non-fiction titles on the list this year, which is about slaughterhouses, and specifically it's about how humans treat animals. And there's a lot of description in there about like animals as a commodity. Essays about animals as a commodity, what eating meat is, how we have this kind of like cognitive dissonance that we ignore, how we use like euphemistic terms to talk about meat and general meat consumption, how we think about meat consumption, all that kind of thing. I'm going to say it's very graphic, and I really didn't like it, and I actually didn't really finish it. And you were the same, right?
I didn't really start it. I did get it out from the library, I very much DNF'd it after probably less than 20 pages. It just was not what I needed to be reading at the time. I find it a very difficult topic to read about as well. And I'm a vegetarian, and it's the reason that I don't eat meat, because I find it so difficult to wrap my head around. So yes, no, it was not going to be for me. So unfortunately, I can't say much about this one.
Yeah, I found. So you told me this when you started reading it. You're like, I've DNF'd it because it's horrible. I have to confess, I was like, whatever, Belle's being pithy. Then I started it and I was like, oh, this is horrendous. This is purely horrendous. Yeah, it was really, there's something about the writing. I think because it's so, I read a little bit more than you, but not super much more. I think I read the first couple of essays. The writing is quite graphic and also quite removed. He's got this sort of like calculated description, which is really like gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it was a bit visceral.
Yeah, it's very, I was vegan for a long time. I'm not anymore, but I'm not a frequent meat consumer at all. So it's also not really something that gets me. Not something that I'm particularly motivated to think about either. Yeah, so that was sort of it. It was. I don't know. I have sort of complicated feelings about things like this because I understand when you're. I mean, let's heavily caveat this with neither of us have read very much of this, but it's difficult when you obviously have something that you care quite a lot about. But I mean, if the way that you've written it is so much in this way that two people who were very much on your side aren't going to read it. Yeah, I have a pretty strong stomach, so I don't know, but I just found it. Oh, there was something about it. I really, really made me feel. It gave me this sense of deep despair.
It had lost me already. I think even flipping it over and reading the blurb. I can't remember if you're a blurb person or not, but
I'm a non-blurb.
There was just a phrase of something about this, like the smell of death in an abattoir, and I think it had lost me there.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I'll put a little review that I've got about it that's very good in the show notes, which describes it in quite a lot of detail. So if you're curious to read it, I would read this review because it will give you a good idea about what's actually in there. But it is a hectic piece. Anyway, let's move on, shall we, to bigger and brighter things. Shall we talk about Feast next?
Sure.
That's me again. It's just all about me. I just want to talk about the bits that I've got that I get to talking. We'll do your bits later and I'll zone out. So the next one is Feast by Emily O'Grady. So this is set over one weekend in Scotland and it's about three women. So Niamh, who's turning 21, which is the purpose of the weekend, and then the wife of Niamh's dad, whose name is Alison, and then Niamh's biological mum, who's called Shannon. So it's Niamh, her mum Shannon, the wife of Niamh's dad, Alison, and Niamh's dad himself. I think his name's Patrick, I believe. So it's the first time these people have ever properly gotten together as a group. And Alison, who is 48, is kind of the mainish character. She has just figured out that she's pregnant. And she's sort of quietly contemplating that throughout the novel, which is paralleled with her relationship with Niamh and Shannon's relationship with Niamh. So there's like a lot of parallel threads about like motherhood and different stages of life, because you have this mother-daughter relationship of this 21-year-old and her mother, and then you have this other woman who's contemplating this sort of like very, very early stages of parenthood. So as the weekend unfolds, it turns out that the dynamics of their relationships are actually very complicated, and there's a lot of discussion about their history and their past. It kind of unfolds piece by piece, especially between Shannon and Patrick, so Niamh's actual parents. There's lots of sort of power plays in there and contemplations on parenthood and regrets. Switching perspective pretty evenly between the three women, so Niamh, Alison, and Shannon. But I would say Alison is kind of the main person. What did you think of this?
I loved it. I think it would have to be my favourite of the shortlisted books this year. I thought it was quite Cuskian, like reminiscent of Rachel Cusk's writing, and particularly her novel Second Place. Just something about the descriptions of the sort of rugged Scottish. It's set in Scotland. I'm not sure you said that. Descriptions of the land, the female narrators. Yeah, I think the visceral and it's very like frank descriptions of the interactions between the characters. Even her description of like Alison's own body. I think there's quite a few descriptions of, Patrick's body and Alison's body and just bits and pieces that just felt very Cuskian to me, if I can use that as an adjective.
I completely agree. I loved it as well. I adored this. It's got that same sort of clustered feeling of three people with very complicated lives coming together in a very intense way. And then it happens, the actual time that passes over the course of both of the novels is quite small. I love that kind of like detailed unpicking where it will talk in a lot of detail about, they have these scenes where someone in these kind of novels where they'll be like carving a chicken or something, and there's like a lot of discussion. Everyone will be thinking different things. I love that kind of thing. Yeah, I wrote my notes for this one about Feast. The writing was delicious. And it had this sort of heady, sleepy, clustered feeling. Like I got a bit of a hangover from this. I love the sensation of finishing a book and then you feel kind of drowsy from it, like you're so in it. I also thought that the shift between the three women, who are very different people, was like seamless. Like it was such a good, it was so smooth, the whole process. And each of them had very different voices, but it was just really smooth the way it moved between them. And I really liked how she just slowly unpacked what this actual story was. And there's so many really interesting, I especially found this, there's quite a big age gap between Shannon and Patrick, so the two biological parents. And there's a bit of discussion throughout about consent and like power plays because he's a lot older than her. And I really loved the way that was just sort of delicately unpicked without it being particularly, I'm going to say, evangelical or something like that. I just really loved the sort of delicate way that she unpacked it. There's something about it felt so drowsy and like heady. It really felt, the whole thing felt like being on holiday.
And also that claustrophobic sort of, like the strange claustrophobic nature. Like there wasn't that many people. It's like 3 people in the house for most of the weekend before Shannon arrives. And it's a large house. They live in it's a castle basically that it was Alison's mum's house. And before that it was a exotic zoo that Alison's mum worked at as a caretaker, and she was responsible for like disposing of the dead, lions and tigers and bear bodies.
Oh my.
And so like it's got this great sense of place, and you're imagining this very cold, very big sort of old house, but at the same time it was so claustrophobic, the interactions between each character. Yeah, I thought it was wonderful. I really, really liked it.
It felt like the 4th day of a holiday or something. It was,
yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think it's one of my favourite books I've read this year. I really loved it.
I had hoped this one would win just in the fact that it was my favourite. I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well.
I was really enjoying reading because I read it before you, I think, and I was like, Belle is going to love this because it's exactly your kind of thing. And I was like, if I love it, because I don't always love those kinds of books, and I was like, Belle's going to adore it.
Yeah, I devoured it. I think it was less than 2 days or something. Yeah,
I didn't think it would absolutely be my favourite to win. That or we should save this conversation for the end. I'm gonna try and get people to support the pod. This is where we pop a little ad break in to tell you all about the different ways that you can support the podcast, most of which are totally free. So the first way that you can support us is via Patreon. At Patreon, our tiers start at just £2 a month, with our bonus episode tier costing just £5. Now that we're seasonal and we're generally recording quite ahead of time, Patreon is where you will find all of our really timely conversations where we'll discuss our current reads and our recent reads, DNFs, etc. You can also try our bonus tier for free. So if you want to listen to our bonus episodes, you can just sign up for like a trial. Please binge listen, and if you don't like it, we will take no offense if you unsubscribe. All fine. And if you love receiving book mail and personalised recommendations, then our top tier is for you. For that one, we get you to fill in a survey, and then we tailor our book recommendations to your preferences. All the details are in the show notes. And another really effective and easy way of showing your support is by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. There is a link in the show notes that will take you straight to the Apple Podcast page where you can write us a review, and you can also do that on Spotify if you listen on Spotify. And you can also share our posts on social media. We are at Bookcast Club on both Instagram and TikTok. But however you choose to show your support, we as always want to say a huge thank you. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners.
Shall we talk about Praiseworthy? So we have left the winner until the end of the episode. This year, Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright won the Stella Prize. And in doing so, Alexis made history, being the first person to win the Stella Prize twice. First time for her biography Tracker, And so she's won the prize for both nonfiction and fiction now. And she's also the only person to have won both the Miles Franklin Award as well as the Stella Prize, I read in an article. Praiseworthy is an epic work of First Nations literature. It spans 700 pages. It is a big book, and the scope of the work is vast. It was very difficult to write a little summary of Praiseworthy, but I will do my best and try to do it justice. It is an epic set in the north of Australia, told with the richness of language and scale of imagery for which Alexis Wright has become renowned. Praiseworthy is a fictional Aboriginal town in rural North Australia. It's a town obsessed with its tidy town status despite its mounting struggles. Poverty, unemployment, religious fanaticism, disputes over land rights, and not to mention the mysterious ochre-coloured haze that has appeared over the town. The novel centres on one family in Praiseworthy. The patriarch of the family is a man named Causman Steele, who is a visionary who seeks out a personal solution to the impending climate catastrophe. His wife, Dance, whose native title land is the cemetery that they live in, and their two sons, Aboriginal Sovereignty, who is I think 17 or 18, and Tommy Hawke, who is much younger. I think he's about 7 or 8 years old. Each pursue a vision of a better life. By her words, Alexis has created a work of scale that meets the scale of what's happening around us. It's indeed a work of fiction. It is an imaginary world, but a world that is affected by issues of government intervention, and the same intervention that was rolled out in Aboriginal communities in the Northern Territory in Australia to change the national narrative about Aboriginal people through the reconciliation process. So it is quite satirical in nature. One of the sort of the elements of this fictional Praiseworthy that are rooted in truth, in occurrences in Australia, includes the hostile way that the Australian media has targeted Aboriginal people in the past to justify interventions. As I said, this novel was impossible to simplify or to try to contain in a nice, neat synopsis. And quite honestly, I'm only halfway through. I have not made it past halfway, actually. I'm not even there yet. It is a big read, and how about you start by telling me what you thought about it?
Okay. I'm glad you gave it such a nice introduction. This is a tricky book because it's a really important book. I see why everyone likes it so much. I personally really struggle with this, and I really didn't enjoy reading it. I'm really glad that you spent so much time just then giving it its due, because yeah, I found this really like a huge slog, and I really didn't enjoy reading it. So I didn't finish it. I'm not going to finish it. All of these themes are in there, and the writing is so, what's the word? I don't even know the word. I'm going to put an article in the show notes that a review that I read in The Guardian, which the person who's writing the review writes quite a lot like Alexis. This person loved the book, and they write quite a lot like Alexis Wright does. So you will get a very good sensation reading that review of what the book is actually like. I found it so, I just never got into it in a proper way. I found it so hard to follow. I found it such a heavy going, such a hard slog. I read the rest of the shortlist way faster than I read even a quarter of this. So it was a combination of there being so many independent threads in this novel, which all feel very equally important, plus the writing being so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's so, I know I haven't described the writing at all. I'm struggling to describe it. Descriptive and repetitive and lyrical, and there's so much prose. This kind of writing style I tend to really struggle with. Yeah, so it was a struggle, is there, which is something I actually feel quite bad about, because I know it's worth reading. I just really struggled with them.
It absolutely was for me as well, and we're not alone. I've read quite a lot of reviews and a lot of articles, including one I've just got up, which is a UK article that literally starts with, "I failed the first time I read Praiseworthy," about 200 pages into this 700-page epic, I was forced to confront the embarrassing realization that I had failed Alexis Wright's first challenge. I really struggled as well, and I've got a bit of a second wind now after pausing reading. I really struggled with the pace of it, and just like the sheer amount of description about every little thing that is happening in each passage. I really struggled with the pace and looking at the length of it. I actually picked it up on an e-reader because I bought the physical copy of the book. It is massive. It's so big. And I thought I'll swap to the physical copy when I'm at least halfway through, because it's quite daunting just looking at the length of it. And so it's much easier on an e-reader where you're not, but the progress bar is not really moving along the bottom. Like you're sort of just stuck there. So I really struggled as well. I had to have a bit of a think about why I was struggling, because I had the same thoughts. I've jotted down in my phone at some point that the sort of phrase, like, certainly there is genius here, but I'm really struggling with the pace of this book. And so you've got this sense when you're reading it that it is something very important, and I feel this great need to read it. I really feel that I need to finish it. So I did some reading and I read some articles and listened to some podcasts as well, where Alexis is interviewed and talks about her, the writing process and, why she's written this book. I'm not going to start again, but I feel that I'm starting again in terms of my approach to the book. So yeah, on first pass, really struggled with this. Yeah. But I think what I've realized is it's a product of the Western way that I view literary fiction and narrative, like the preconceived ideas I have about the linear timelines, or what I expect from a timeline in a fiction novel. She writes with a fluidity to her timeline that I think probably speaks to the depth and age of Aboriginal history and storytelling, past intermingled with present, reflecting the importance of learning from our history in the present moment as we live through current events. And so I came to the conclusion that my ideas about the linear timelines and writing probably speak more to my limitations as a reader, and these Western ideas about linear timelines. And it just reminds me again that I need to read more First Nations writing. She said she actually wrote the novel, this is a quote, off-key and in an Aboriginal chord, to the heartbeat of country. It's a slow beat.
Yeah, I completely agree, because as I was reading it, I was really, really struggling with it. And I had this strong sense that, because sometimes you feel like the book is not that good and that's why you're not following it. But in this case, I had the strong sense that I was missing the book. It feels extremely deliberate. It's extremely intentional. Everything seems intentional in this book. And I could tell that I was like, not appreciating it, not understanding it. And to be honest, I don't think that's going to change for me in this time. It's the kind, some books you get a strong sensation that you're reading it at the wrong time, and that's very much how I feel about this book. It's like the kind of, if I was to think about the perfect time that I would read this book, I have this vision of myself like reading it when I have less work on, where I can read in the afternoons or something like that, like every day for a bit. But I just had I've had this with a couple of books before, when I've had a strong sensation that I am not following this properly, and then I need to go back to it at another time. So I'm not going to pick it up anymore, because I don't think I'm going to appreciate it like at all at this time.
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep going to challenge myself. It's just a different way of thinking, and I worked out the way to read it is just to keep reading, just to persevere, because as I've got further through, I've sort of let go a little bit of what my expectations are, and I'm just sort of, you realize that you've just got to let her take you where she's wanting to take you. I think, yeah, and that pace and the scale that is quite daunting. It feels special, and it feels reminiscent of the unbroken culture that she's writing about, and yeah, the scale of things she's writing about as well. It's fantastic. I can see why it's won. I can absolutely see why it's won.
Oh yeah, same.
It is not the most accessible book because whilst you recognise that there is something very special here, you do have to persevere and keep reading. And I know that a lot of people will just put the book down, which, I hope that they, that pick it up at another time.
Yeah, and I'm looking through some reviews, and that's definitely the mood. It's like this is hard. It's
this article from what is this? This UK article. I just read it about half an hour before we caught up tonight. I was shocked reading the first passage because I was like, this is exactly what I'm going to say. And they say it seems to be like multiple people in a couple of the interviews I have listened to that the interviewers are confessing to Alexis that they also struggled, that they got to 200 pages in and they thought they're not going to be able to do it, that they really struggled, but it seems that pushing through was a way to get there. And I think it just takes 200 pages to realize that you need to let go. Phenomenal book, phenomenal scale. It is epic.
Yeah. I will say also, this is the second Alexis Wright book I've DNF'd. I also DNF'd Tracker.
Not the writing for you.
Yeah, it's just my impatience and intolerance of stuff. Yeah, so, however, overall, I really like this shortlist. Apart from Abandon Every Hope, which, whatever. I really, really, I didn't, so Praiseworthy I didn't enjoy per se, but that's not to say that I think it shouldn't be on the shortlist. And then the rest of the shortlist, which I've just closed because I'm an idiot. Here it is. I really, really enjoyed it. Like, they were all really, really good. Yeah, two of them. Yeah, I loved it. It was a really good shortlist.
Really good experience reading the shortlist again.
Yeah, agree.
It's quite nice having a prize that you can trust, that, picking up all the books that they shortlist. I mean, this is only the second year that I've done this, but...
Yeah, same. Because last year we had some really good... I remember Bad Art Mother we both really loved. And so for me this year, The Swift Dark Tide and Feast were both really... Actually, Hospital was really good. Actually, Body Frame was also... I mean, it was really good. These are four, really noteworthy books for me.
Bad Art Mother from last year is still coming back to me. I think about it quite often. And since I finished, probably the same. Feast, Body Friend, Hospital... And they're on my mind a lot. They sort of come back to me quite a lot, which is something special to find in a book that sort of hangs around a bit.
Yeah, I love the Stella Prize. And something that I've said on the podcast before that I really think is cool about the Stella Prize is they have the most broad categories, I think, pretty well of any prize, whether you can anything. They'll take graphic novels, like anything. And I've read the whole shortlist maybe 3. I've definitely come very close to reading the whole shortlist, maybe 4 times, I would say. And it has so much cohesion. I don't know how they do it. There must be something in the way that they do their docs for their judges, but there's so much cohesion in this shortlist, which is so, even though the actual things that you're reading are so eclectic, every year there's just so much, you read it all and you're like, yes, I can see why these all belong together. They just have this incredible way of pulling out these books from, it must be an enormous range of things that they have to read. So I just find it to be extremely impressive. And there's something about the mood and the beat of all these books. I think it's the heart of them is consistent, and you can see there's consistency somehow, even though that they'll be in a lot of ways quite disparate. Really, really good prize.
They must have a very high caliber of judges, I think. I don't know who was on the panel this year, but I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know them, to be honest, but good one. All right, how much time have we got left? We've kind of over time, but we're going to talk about some other stuff. Let's do it. Let's wrap. Okay, sorry, let me segue in a less hectic way. All right, so wrap up. We want to talk about some other random bonus stuff, right? I was going to talk about some other stuff, but episode's running a bit long, so we'll skip my bit. Who cares about me? What do you want to say? Tell me, please.
Well, I had mentioned my recent reads. Is that what you want me to talk about?
Do whatever you like. I don't mind. The floor is yours.
Sure. Recent reads. I am currently reading a novel, I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai, which was a book in the post that I received as a Patreon of the Bookcast Club, which is a fantastic feature of being a top tier Patreon, is that I get book recommendations in my inbox, so personalised book recommendations of books that Sarah and Jenny think that I would enjoy. And I've picked quite a few of them up. All of them end up on my Want to Read Storygraph folder. But I am about, a quarter of the way through the most recent book in the post, which has been likened to Donna Tartt's.
Oh.
Yeah, which is always a very controversial thing. It's a very big claim to put on the blurb of a book.
I know, they love it, don't they?
They love to say it is a secret history, But it's fantastic. I shall read the blurb.
Okay, nice. I will say this was Chris and Jenny did this one for you. It wasn't me. I'm not going to toot my own horn. I've actually never read any Rebecca Makkai. I haven't read The Great Believers. Funnily enough, it kind of puts. I don't know. It's something about it. I've never felt the urge to pick it up. That's the one that's about the AIDS crisis.
Oh, the New Yorker article reviewing this book is titled "A Novel That Confronts Our True Crime Obsession."
Yeah, it sounds much more like something. Sorry, I cut you off. It sounds much more like something that I would be interested in, because I am really interested in this topic of true crime. And how do you remember? I don't know if you remember. I read that book. Yeah, I read that book, The Five: The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hayley Rubenhold. And in that, it's a nonfiction that talks about the women who were the victims of Jack the Ripper. In that last chapter, she has a really good essay about our engagement with true crime, which actually really changed my opinion about true crime and my engagement with it. I basically don't do any true crime anymore. Well, not basically. I don't. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. But please, I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to read a bit of the blurb for anyone who is interested. A successful film professor and podcaster, Bodie Kane, is content to forget her past, the family tragedy that marred her adolescence, her 4 largely miserable years at a New Hampshire boarding school, and the murder of her former roommate, Talia Keith, in the spring of their senior year. Though the circumstances surrounding Talia's death and the conviction of a school's athletic trainer are hotly debated online, Bodie needs to let sleeping dogs lie. But when the Granby School invites her back to teach a course, Bodie is drawn into the case and its increasingly apparent flaws. In their rush to convict, did the school and the police overlook other suspects? Is the real killer still out there? As she falls down the very rabbit hole she was so determined to avoid, Bodie begins to wonder if she wasn't as much of an outsider at Granby as she'd thought, if perhaps back in 1995 she knew something that might have held the key to solving the case. It was a very well chosen book in the post for me, because I read the blurb and went straight to the cafe to start reading.
Straight to the calf.
And I'm doing that thing where I'm savoring it a bit as well. Like when
Nice.
I catch myself reading it too fast, I'm putting it down for a bit. So it is very good. Another recent read, I recently finished listening to The Bee Sting by Paul Murray as an audiobook, which is another very epic, very large, long novel. It's a family saga following a dysfunctional family living in a rural town in Ireland. And chapter by chapter, it pieces together their lives. So you come out of it, or you sort of are nearing the end with a very in-depth understanding of this family, each member of the family, and what they're going through privately at the moment, and their sort of dysfunction as a family unit, as well as the broader sort of community and town. The whole way along as well, it's also piecing together, you're slowly getting more information about the past, to how this family came to be, so how this couple got together. There's sort of a tragedy in their not so recent past, and it's quite unclear how that fits into it until almost, the end of the book. And the way that it's a very long book. It was, I think, 25 hours audiobook, but it was great every time. I'd pop my headphones in on the ride, on the commute to work. And it was just like diving straight back into a family drama. And because you knew these characters so well by the end, I think that was the key to making the ending as phenomenal as it was. It has, I think, the most fantastic cliffhanger I've read, and I would highly recommend the audiobook for a long-form listen. It does that thing where there's a different voice for each character. Each chapter is a different family member's sort of story, and you've got a different voice for each character. The way that works out is that the last chapter very quickly jumps between each member of the family, so I'm not sure how that would be laid out in the book. I've been meaning to go to a bookshop and just flip to the back just to see how they do it, but it was perfect as an audiobook. You were listening to a very dramatic movie unfolding, but it was fantastic. I was driving, finishing a road trip as I was finishing this audiobook, and I was like quite literally screaming in the car, like just the tension, and it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger as well. So it's fantastic. It's well worth the effort of reading, even though it looks, it's quite daunting, another big, heavy, daunting book to pick up. But it was great. I loved it.
What you've said, I have a really good friend Lee, who we share all the same taste in books, and she really loved it. I was actually staying with her last year when I was in Australia. She's Australian. I always try and get her to come on the pod, and she always refuses. But she was reading it. She's like, every day, she's like, "You've got to read this. Oh my God, you've got to read it." And then she was reading it and having like out loud reactions. She was actually in her room, in her bedroom, reading it, and she just kept shouting down the hall, "You got to read it!" And I was like, "Okay."
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Like whilst it builds up, you can tell all the storylines are building to something, and you just don't know what until you're in the middle of it. But they're all throughout it, there are like little mini storylines building up as well.
Yeah. The last like quarter of it, she was like going crazy, shouting at me. Gotta read it.
I was screaming in the car driving, listening to it.
I need to read it. I think it's on my list for the second half of the year, I think. Yeah, I'm excited. Right. I think that'll do us, Mace. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm nodding. Sorry. It's really effective for the podcast.
Yeah, nodding. She loves it.
Silent.
Video form. She's effective. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on again. Lovely to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for reading the shortlist.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I'm just going to thank everyone. Thank you to my mum. If you would like to get in touch with the podcast, please do. You can email us at thebookcastclub@outlook.com. You can contact us on Instagram. You can message us on TikTok. You can sign up to our newsletter where we do lots of stuff. And again, check out our Patreon if you wish. Thank you much again. Thank you much for listening. And we will speak to you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.